The transport ship landed with a thud on the scorched dirt of Varnak 7, kicking up dust and silence in equal measure. The council officers lined up at a safe distance, observing the disembarkment of Earth's promised support. Their expectations hovered somewhere between insult and curiosity. The hatch hissed open. What emerged made several alien delegates blink in confusion. They weren't the power-armored infantry or elite cyber-augmented humans that some had assumed would be deployed. They were old, wrinkled, some limped. Some wore mismatched uniforms with weather badges. The youngest among them might have been in his 60s. No gleaming armor, no advanced tech, just worn boots, tactical vests, and hard eyes. One of them lit a cigar before even stepping off the ramp. A Zalari logistics officer leaned toward his superior and whispered, Are they ceremonial? They're labeled combat ready. The reply came, dry and unconvinced. The humans barely acknowledged the crowd. They formed into a loose column, talking softly among themselves, dragging crates and duffels stamped with old Earth insignias. Weapons, too, kinetic rifles, ballistic shotguns, knives worn down from years of sharpening. No plasma, no AI-assisted targeting. It was primitive by galactic standards. One even had a modified bolt-action rifle strapped across his back. A briefing was arranged in haste. General Varek of the Altari Alliance delivered the tactical overview to the Earth detachment. He projected holograms, detailed strategic choke points, probable enemy flanking routes, and projected casualty rates. The humans said nothing. They watched, listened. At the end of the briefing, one of them, tall, gray-bearded, with a calm but surgical gaze, spoke a single sentence. We'll hold that line. The line he referred to wasn't just any front line. It was Sector 9, a kill zone where Council forces had lost thousands in recent weeks. Enemy artillery, drones, and assault mechs made it suicide to even patrol during daylight. It was a place of silence and ghosts. So the Council, half mocking, half washing their hands of responsibility, assigned the humans there. Let the old warriors die in a corner no one could save. The night before deployment, the humans prepped in silence. Some maintained gear. Others smoked or stared at nothing in particular. One had a worn deck of cards. Another was etching something into the butt of his rifle with a knife. No prayers, no speeches. At dawn, they moved out, 32 in total. They arrived at Sector 9 just as the morning bombardment started. Council surveillance drones captured the deployment. No shields, no exosuits, just bodies moving with purpose like they'd done it 1,000 times. They ignored the craters and smoke. They set up firing positions, laid traps, rigged tripwires, and measured distances without sensors. An Altari junior commander watching the feed scoffed, They'll be dead in an hour. An hour passed. The enemy approached. That's when things changed. The first kill came from a high ridge, one shot, clean, through metal and bone. A second followed from a different vector. Within minutes, enemy scouts began to fall. Then came the screams. Human orders barked in sharp, practiced bursts. Gunfire erupted in rhythm, not chaos. Tracer rounds laced through cover. The enemy hesitated. It wasn't just the humans holding the line. They were turning it into a lesson. Council officers watched in disbelief as drones recorded humans moving like predators, vanishing after each engagement, flanking with an instinct no algorithm predicted. They used terrain, used noise, used bait. One group led a swarm of enemy drones into an abandoned tunnel rigged with explosives. Another carved a kill box into a canyon pass, using only grenades and old-fashioned suppressive fire. In the command tent, silence fell. Someone rewound the footage. "These aren't soldiers," one alien murmured. "They're ghosts. No speeches. No acknowledgments. No help requested. The humans have been dropped into a meat grinder and started grinding back." By nightfall, the impossible happened. Sector 9 wasn't just held. It was secured. Enemy corpses littered the field. Human casualties, 2 wounded, 1 dead. The old soldier who spoke during the briefing stood at the center of the battlefield, helmet off, staring into the dusk. His face was calm. One of the council observers whispered into the comms. Who trained these men? The Earth liaison replied without hesitation. They trained each other, and they trained the enemy to fear them. Nothing more was said that night, but across the stars, the footage began to spread. 32 old humans had done what no modern army could, and they weren't done. The enemy returned at dawn, this time in force. Recon drones swept the hills ahead of their main column, scanning for traps, bodies, or survivors. What they found was silence and ash. By their calculations, the humans should have retreated or died. But Sector 9 was not abandoned. The moment their lead units crossed into the open plain, the killing started. Humans emerged from places the enemy never marked as strategic: culverts, trenches, half-buried craters. No energy weapons, no target locks, just iron, fire, and precision. The enemy returned fire, but every burst was answered with something sharper, smarter. The humans didn't outgun them. They outthought them. By the third wave, the enemy switched to aerial suppression. Artillery bots hovered into position, launching smart shells designed to adjust mid-flight. The humans responded with jammers made from scrap, forcing the bombs to detonate mid-air or veer into their own lines. A dozen enemy units fell to their own weapons. The council began to reassess. Strategists reviewed the footage again, this time with military historians. One of them recognized a flanking pattern from Earth's 21st century warfare manuals. Another pointed to the use of overlapping fields of fire, something ancient, nearly forgotten. These old humans weren't improvising. They were executing doctrine that hadn't been seen on a battlefield in centuries. The second offensive was crushed in under 30 minutes. What unnerved the enemy more than the losses was the psychological impact. Drones recorded enemy units hesitating, pulling back from what should have been clean victories. They started seeing shapes in the smoke, hallucinating footsteps. Ghosts, they called them. One prisoner, shaking and half-blind from flashbang, told his interrogator, "They never stop. You don't see them until it's too late. They don't even speak." The humans advanced past Sector 9 against orders. They pushed into a forward ridge that had been marked unassailable. They didn't ask permission. They took it. Along the way, they captured 2 enemy supply haulers and turned them into makeshift bunkers. Their method was brutal, efficient, every action designed to break morale as much as bodies. An alien observer, watching the battlefield feeds, remarked, "This is savagery." The Earth liaison answered, "No, this is experience." Council command debated pulling them back, worried the humans might escalate the conflict too quickly, make the enemy panic into planetary strikes. But those concerns faded as word spread. Other council soldiers, once fearful, disorganized, started volunteering to fight alongside the humans. Something about watching the old warriors sparked something in them. Courage, clarity, the will to act. A communications relay captured a transmission between 2 council officers. Why do they fight like this? They're not fighting for survival. They're fighting because they've already survived worse. The enemy began altering their tactics, trying to counter the humans with swarm drones and heat-seeking sentries. The humans countered with old tricks: smoke, mirrors, decoys. One squad reportedly used firecrackers and metal scraps to simulate a battalion, drawing enemy forces into a ravine packed with explosives. No AI could have predicted it. Losses mounted, not human enemy. For the first time in this war, Council intel marked human-led units as black zones, unsalvageable territory for enemy forces. What had been a liability became their strongest line. The Council convened an emergency war summit. Every species had questions. Who trained these people? Why were they deployed now? What did Earth know that no one else did? The humans didn't attend the summit. They were still fighting. By week's end, the enemy front collapsed in 2 sectors, and all signs pointed to a single, irreducible fact. These old warriors weren't just symbols or myths. They were the new standard. One council admiral stated bluntly, "We need more of them." The Earth rep responded, "We don't have more. We only have the ones who came back." The battlefield grew quiet, not because the enemy had won, because the humans had made them think. That was the real danger. The old soldiers didn't just kill. They made the enemy doubt. Doubt breaks armies faster than bullets. And for the first time, the Galactic Council wasn't laughing at Earth's offer. They were listening closely. The enemy responded with desperation. Their command structure shifted overnight, deploying elite kill units designed for suppression and eradication. These were no longer reconnaissance squads or mechanized infantry. They were execution teams built to neutralize strategic threats. They descended on the ridgeline where the humans had made their mark, expecting to dismantle a small, tired unit. They found nothing but silence and fire. The first strike team vanished. No distress call, no signal flare, just static. Hours later, charred wreckage was found half buried under collapsed terrain. Autopsies showed close-quarters damage. Knives, blunt trauma, hand-laid explosives. The kill team had been taken apart piece by piece, in the dark, without a single casualty on the human side. The Council War Board lit up with red alerts. This wasn't a fluke. This was calculated. Humans began pushing past their assigned zones, carving out pockets of control far beyond what was strategically advised. They ignored standard deployment cycles, resting in shifts of 3, fighting in rotations that defied age or exhaustion. Their command structure was flat, decentralized. Orders were short, quiet, precise. It was less like an army and more like a hunting pack. Council commanders studying the engagements noticed something unsettling. The enemy wasn't adapting fast enough. AI decision trees couldn't predict the humans' moves. Logic models broke down. These old warriors were making decisions based on instinct and learned pain, not algorithmic efficiency. They moved like predators in an ecosystem that didn't know how to deal with predators. A forward recon station picked up intercepted enemy chatter. Panic. They refer to the humans not as soldiers, but as nightmen, as old death, as the force that should have been extinct but wasn't. One phrase was repeated in their encoded transmission. They remember too much. Reports from Allied forces filtering in from other sectors painted the same picture. Wherever the humans moved, resistance collapsed faster, not because of numbers, but because of terror. Council troops who fought beside the humans stopped retreating. They stopped hesitating. They followed orders without delay. Something about the way the humans moved, their certainty, their calm under fire, infected the others. Hardened them. An alien soldier who returned from joint operations said, "You hear bullets snap past your head, and they don't flinch. You start thinking, maybe you shouldn't either." Earth Command sent no reinforcements. They didn't need to. 31 remained now, one having died from injuries days earlier. And yet the humans had taken more ground than entire Council divisions. They didn't ask for recognition. They didn't even ask for resupply. When offered orbital drops of advanced weapons, they refused. Too shiny, one of them said. Too noisy. Instead, they modified what they found. Enemy railguns turned into stationary turrets. Scout drones stripped for sensors and tripwires. They turned destruction into utility. One squad rigged a captured walker to move like a decoy, drawing enemy fire while they slipped behind enemy lines. No textbook would have allowed it, but it worked. An emergency council inquiry demanded to know how Earth found them. The liaison replied, they were never lost. They were just waiting for the right kind of war. At the heart of the enemy's push, a supercarrier arrived in orbit, deploying legions of synthetics and autonomous siege walkers. It was meant to end the campaign. Instead, it became the stage for something else. The humans didn't retreat. They infiltrated. 2 nights later, the supercarrier fell from the sky. Sabotage from within. Recordings recovered from its black box showed 4 humans moving through the halls. No comms. No hesitation. No mercy. When asked how they boarded the carrier, no one knew. When asked how they escaped, no one could say. Only one broadcast came through from the humans that night. A simple sentence in an old dialect of Earth Standard. We've done this before. That message echoed through every war council in the galaxy. This wasn't about helping humanity. This was about humanity helping the galaxy remember what war actually looked like. And the enemy, for all their technology and numbers, finally understood. They were not just fighting humans. They were fighting history. The final phase began not with an invasion, but with hesitation. Enemy forces stalled their advance for the first time in the entire campaign. Recon units refused to cross into human-controlled zones. Automated systems reported anomalies in logic trees, suggesting retreat when they were programmed for aggression. Something had shifted. The old soldiers weren't just disrupting the war, they were breaking its foundation. The Council detected enemy communications being routed through unlisted frequencies. Analysts decrypted panic. Reports of ghost units, weapon malfunctions, impossible human ambushes. One log simply read, "We no longer understand the battlefield." That was the precise moment Earth's old soldiers became more than a tactical advantage. They became a psychological weapon. The humans weren't acting like any known force. No uniformity. No digital signatures. They used silence as strategy, chaos as cover. Their leadership structure was so decentralized it defied classification. The enemy tried to track their command node, unaware that their commander was a man who'd fought in 3 separate planetary wars before the enemy species even reached space. He didn't use AI. He used memory. When one council general asked why these men were so effective, Earth's response was simple. They've already fought their last war. This is cleanup. The enemy made one final gamble. A coordinated assault involving orbital precision strikes, subterranean tunneling units, and suicide drones. They targeted the entire human perimeter with overwhelming force. The assumption was that fatigue, age, and outdated tactics would finally crack. It didn't. Instead, the humans went quiet. Radios silent. Surveillance blind. Then, a sudden reappearance behind enemy lines. The humans didn't defend. They attacked. Not with overwhelming firepower, but with precision, cutting out comm towers, targeting unit leaders, planting confusion where strategy should have been. The battlefield became a maze, and the enemy walked straight into it. Council observers later concluded the humans had orchestrated the entire collapse over the past 5 days. The traps, the staged retreats, the deliberate bottlenecks. Everything had been laid for this moment. Enemy losses peaked within 6 hours. Not from sheer numbers, but from command failure. Units fled. Drones returned to base without firing. The enemy's AI systems, designed to predict structured military logic, failed catastrophically. The war didn't end with a surrender. It ended with silence. The enemy disappeared from the region. No farewell transmission. No scorched earth fallback. Just gone. The Council stood at the edge of the ruined battlefield, watching the 30 humans, now down to 29, walk out of the dust. No celebration. No debrief. They simply returned to their drop site and waited. When asked what they needed, one of them said coffee and a ride. The Council voted unanimously to halt further operations until Earth could advise. Not because they lacked troops, not because they lacked weapons, but because they finally understood. They lacked what these old soldiers carried in their bones. Resolve shaped by hardship, tactics carved by loss, instincts earned over decades of surviving when survival wasn't guaranteed. Earth issued no demands, offered no threats. They just transmitted one file to all allied and neutral powers. It contained combat logs, minimal commentary, and a simple note. There are more of us, but we don't send them lightly. Those words spread faster than the footage ever did. The old soldiers didn't retire. They rotated, slowly, carefully, one at a time. Their replacements weren't young. They weren't fresh. They were survivors of different wars, different scars. And each walked into the fire as if they'd never left it. The war shifted after that, not because the enemy was gone, but because the galaxy had remembered what it feared. Not human weapons, not Earth's advancements, but human will, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that doesn't forget, the kind that waits quietly for the next fight, not because it wants to fight, but because it already knows how it ends.